I want to get to Mr. Bloomberg and his ad spend in just a moment. I assume he's going to target Super Tuesday, which is really where he would need to do well to have any shot at the thing. But my question basically is, how big a wrapped up gift is what happened in Iowa for President Trump? Because he can plausibly say the Democrats can't count. And if they can't run a caucus in a little state like Iowa, how can you expect them to run a country in a modern world?
Well, I think the news cycle moves very fast, as you all know. So I think there is some level of him putting out different tweets and different comments on this and laughing about it. But I think we're going to move on pretty quickly with New Hampshire on February 11th. I mean, I don't think.
But he knows how to keep stuff alive.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And there is a remnant, I might be dating myself. This is like Hanging Chad's Florida 2000. And there's a little bit of that going around.
I read an Andy Borowitz satire piece this morning in the New Yorker saying that that Florida had kindly volunteered to send people up to help Iowa with this. So that's one thing. So let's get to Mr. Bloomberg. As we move on from Iowa, whatever happens there, one way or another, they will get results out. Bloomberg is going to up his spending. I have to think that his target are those big Super Tuesday states, which this year include California, which had traditionally been a June primary, and Texas.
Absolutely. And something we've written about at Barclays Research is looking at Super Tuesday, it's 35% of the delegates. Only 4% happen in these early states of Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. So Super Tuesday plays a very large role. We've always been skeptical on this momentum bounce out of Iowa. So the fact that we don't have results isn't that dramatic for us in our point of view and how we look at it.
Why do the parties, this is not the right word, correct my verbiage here. Why do the parties let small states like Iowa and New Hampshire go first and have such outsized impact or influence on who they nominate?
It's a larger conversation, but basically this is a historical situation where Iowa's been first in the nation for quite some time. There's been questions about whether they should continue in that role, and I'm sure following this year, people will bring up those questions as well.
But it does raise an interesting point, which is the Electoral College serves to build coalitions and to moderate people from extremes. So if California now has so much influence in Texas, big population states, Texas not so much, but the ideology of the sort of coast, if you will, is usually different than the ideology of the rest of the states. Is there a risk that as California gets more credence, that it might move the party to name somebody, like a Bernie, for example, who wouldn't actually be able to defeat the president?
Very good point. Keep in mind, though, the Democratic Party uses a proportional allocation of delegates. So if you win 75% of the vote, you might only get 75% of the delegates in a certain primary. This happened in 2016 in South Carolina for the Democrats, while on the Republican side, it's often winner take all or winner take most. So in a multi-party candidate race, then candidate Trump only got a 35% of the vote in certain states, but he got 100% of the delegates. So it is different. So on the Democratic side going forward, you could have a very long race and get to the final primary on June 6th with no official nominee. And then from June 6th to the actual convention, they'll be scrambling to figure that out.
Do you buy into the conventional wisdom that if Sanders or Warren are ascendant as the campaign continues, that the market will take note of that and the market might sell off?
I think the market is concerned about a very progressive candidate for a lot of reasons. But keep in mind, just because someone's president doesn't mean they can do all the different things they want.
No, they'd have to deal with Congress.
And very likely you're going to have a split Congress. But you do have a lot of power, as we've seen over the last 3 years, on U.S. trade policy. So if you want to revise what is now USMCA, you want to rethink the relationship with China or look towards the European Union, you can have a lot of power in how you think about trade. You might decide environmental and labor issues are at the top of your ticket as you renegotiate trade deals.